You ever notice how the price of beef or pork seems to have a mind of its own? I mean, it goes up and then it stays up for a really long time, totally out of sync with everything else in your grocery cart. Well, it turns out that's because this market isn't driven by machines, it's driven by biology. And if you can understand that biological clock, you can understand the entire market. So here's the big puzzle we're going to unpack. Why does it feel like the price of a steak today is being influenced by a decision some farmer made, like, years ago? It's a great question, and the answer comes down to one core concept that really governs the entire protein industry, from the farm all the way to your dinner plate. Okay, so you gotta understand, we're dealing with two totally different kinds of markets here. On one side, you've got your machine-paced markets, right? If you need more widgets, you just speed up the factory. But livestock markets, they move at the pace of life itself. They're slow, they're cyclical, and they're 100% biological. You just can't rush biology. And that gets us right to the heart of the issue, this built-in delay that biology forces on the whole system. The entire market, from global trade all the way down to your local grocery prices, is literally chained to the natural tempo of the animals themselves. And this visual just lays it all out perfectly. I mean, just look at the difference. To get a chicken onto your plate, we're talking a matter of weeks. For pork, it's a few months. But for cattle, you're talking about years. This huge difference in production time is the number one reason why beef prices have such a long memory. Now, this biological lag creates this really wild, counterintuitive effect. So let's say a drought hits, or feed gets super expensive. Farmers can't afford to keep their herds, so what do? They sell them off. Now, in the short term, that floods the market with meat. And hey, prices might even drop for a little while. But a few months or a couple years down the line, that pipeline is totally empty. And that creates a massive shortage and a huge price spike. And yeah, there's a name for this whole thing. It's called the livestock cycle. It's this delayed reaction to market signals, this kind of inertia and overshoot that's all driven by biology that causes those big multi-year price swings you see. It's literally the pulse of the entire protein market. So time is one piece of the puzzle. The other major factor is what it actually takes to create that protein in the first place. We're talking about this incredible biological process of turning crops, like corn and soybeans, into meat. And this chart illustrates the economics of that perfectly. Chickens are incredibly efficient. They require very little feed to gain weight. Hogs are somewhere in the middle, but cattle, they are by far the least efficient converters. And what that means is they're the most sensitive to any little change in the price of corn or soy, which directly links the green markets to the price of your steak dinner. Traders have a cool name for this. They call it the hog crush. But don't let the name fool you. It's really just a simple profit calculation. You take the price you can get for the final product, the hog, and you subtract the cost of your inputs, which is mostly corn and soy. That number you get at the end, the profit margin, that's the signal that tells producers whether to grow their herds or to shrink them. Now, this slow, cyclical market is pretty predictable to a point, but what happens when something comes along and just violently resets that biological clock? Well, those are what we call shocks to the system. And these shocks can be absolutely massive. A severe drought can force farmers to sell off huge parts of their herds, which creates an echo of high prices for years and years. Or a disease outbreak, something like African swine fever, can literally wipe out millions of animals. It's like a huge chunk of the global protein supply just vanishes for a very long time. So while these biological rules are universal, the economic systems definitely are not. The US, for example, kind of acts as the global price reference. Brazil is this low-cost, pasture-based exporting powerhouse. China is the absolute center of global pork demand, and it's driven by policy and these big disease cycles. Every region plays a different role in this giant interconnected global web. Okay, so we've got this slow biological clock, we've got feed costs, and we have these global shocks. So what does it all mean? What's the takeaway? Well, it turns out this market is sending us incredibly important signals about the health of the global food system and even the wider economy. First and foremost, the price of meat is a direct reflection of the cost of feed. Simple as that. When meat prices are high, it's a really clear signal that the underlying cost of greens, like corn and soy, is also on the rise. And second, these markets give us a real-time window into what consumers are doing all around the world. The demand for meat, especially in huge markets like China, tells us an awful lot about the strength of the global consumer. And this all brings us to the final, and maybe most important point. Because of those really long biological lags we talked about, the livestock market acts as a powerful early warning system. What's happening on the farm today is a direct forecast for the food inflation that's going to show up in your household budget months or even years down the road. So the next time you're standing in the meat aisle, just take a look at the price tag. It's not just a number. It is the end of a very long story. A story about weather, about feed costs, about global demand, and about biology. So what story is it going to be telling you?